Um, First up will be our speaker for tonight, Rob Dixon from George's Riverkeeper. Then after the presentation and associated Q&A, we will have a few general business announcements, and then please stay on if you can to enjoy some refreshments, a chat with other members, and to watch some historical photos of past activities, activities. You may even see yourself on the screen. For the Zoomers out there, first of all, a reminder to please mute your microphones if not already done, so we can't hear any background noise from your place. During the presentation, I ask you all to keep your microphones muted. For the Q&A session, you can ask questions by virtually raising your hand in the reactions box or using the chat function to send a message to the off host that you want to ask a question, or you can type your question into the message and it can be read out for you. Please mute your microphones after asking your question. And for those here in the audience, it's just a matter of raising your hand and I'll ask you to come to the front where you can speak your question and it can be heard out there in Zoomland, and then Rob can answer the questions. For those here in the audience, yes, I've said that. So to our speaker tonight. Our speaker tonight is Rob Dixon from the George's Riverkeeper, and many of you will know Rob from experience working up and down the river and all the activities that the George's Riverkeeper undertakes. We all know the importance of the George's River to the local environment and the community. It's essential that incredible value is protected for future generations. George's Riverkeeper is an organisation that has been working to help maintain and improve the condition of the George's River for over 4 decades. Rob will be presenting on the river and current George's Riverkeeper programs. Rob has been working for George's Riverkeeper for 4 years and has a background in environmental science, wetland ecology, and bush regeneration. And with that brief introduction, I'll hand over to Rob. I'll just wait a few minutes for our guests to settle in. All okay? Good to see you here, Peter. Okay.
Alrighty.
Thank you.
Is this thing on? Everyone can hear all right? So thanks for the intro, Kim. Yeah, I'm Rob. I work for George's Riverkeeper. And thanks for Oatley Flora and Fauna for hosting me tonight. Yeah, it's really great to come to these kind of community organisations and give them a little update of what we've been doing and a bit more information about the river, especially Oatley and Flora and Fauna, with all the amazing work they've done for the river over more decades than George Riverkeeper's been around. So yeah, there's a few familiar faces here. I'm looking forward to getting to know a few more of you. So first up, I would like to also acknowledge the Bidjigal people of the Eora Nation, who are the traditional owners and I guess original river keepers of this section of the river, and pay respect to elders past, present and emerging. So tonight I will present a little bit about the river, some of the ongoing issues affecting it, some of the work we do, and some things that individuals and organisations like Oatley Flora and Fauna can do to help look after the river. I'm also really keen to hear from you all about your concerns and opportunities for George's Riverkeeper. So the George's River is 96 kilometres long and the catchment area is 930 kilometres squared. So 2 nines, it's kind of easy to remember for me. So you can see on that map there, around half of the catchment's urbanised. So the majority of the northern side of the river is urbanised, but there's still extensive areas of uncleared bushland in the south of the catchment. So that little star represents Oatley. So the river is classified as a drowned river valley. So that means when sea levels rose after the last ice age, the rising water filled in all the bays and small little catchments of the former Georges River. And that's created a lot of areas of open water, bays and tributaries. I feel like Oatley kind of marks two different sections of the river. Upstream of Oatley, there are a lot of areas of mudflats and sandbars within the open channel, whereas downstream it becomes a lot deeper. So upstream's got a lot more fluvial influence, whereas downstream's more marine influence. And I think that the Georges River estuary would be in a lot worse shape if it wasn't a drowned river valley. So because of the sandstone walls which cover the valley, a lot of it hasn't been cleared all the way to the water, and that's protected it against erosion. So you're probably aware of the ecological significance of the local area, and we've spent a lot of time looking after it. But here are some highlights. So the river in the area has some remnant areas of seagrass beds. The species here is mainly Zostra. A lot of mangrove environments which fringe the foreshores and embayments. There's some areas of salt marsh. This is a nice patch of that first image in the moon bays at Lugano. And then there's also mudflats and sandbars, which are good migratory shorebird feeding habitat. And that's an image of a couple of godwits that Debbie took nearby her house. So the catchments has around 30 endangered ecological communities. Some of the ones that occur in the Oatley area are salt marsh, turpentine ironbark forest, and freshwater wetlands. And the area is also home to many threatened species, including grey-headed flying fox, powerful owls, eastern curlews, among others. So, yeah, it's a really important area. It's in the heart of the biggest city in Australia. So the condition of the Georges River's improved over the years thanks to better environmental laws and policies. I think that people are generally more aware of environmental concerns. However, there's still a lot of ongoing issues. One main one is pollution. So mainly the stormwater system brings runoff, which includes litter, excess nutrients, sediments, chemicals from the streets and catchments. So that aerial image there is after one of the large rain events in the past few months in April, and you can see the increase in turbidity that comes off the urban landscape and out into the bay. And there's some of the litter that comes down with it. Yeah, especially just upstream of Oatley, there's a few eddies which occur in the river, and a lot of the debris gets stuck around those areas. In addition to like the sediment and the litter that comes with the storm water, there's also an increase in velocity and flow coming off impervious surfaces. This causes excessive erosion in creeks and can lead to increased turbidity. There's also sewage effluent coming from wet weather overflows during large rain events and the dry weather overflows, which are generally a lot more toxic to wildlife. So the pollution reduces the livability for the community. We can't do the things we want to do on the river, like swimming and kayaking if it's really polluted. And it also disrupts the river ecosystems. So some of the other issues affecting the river are people's behaviour. I feel like some people still need to be educated to be aware of and kinder to the river. Stop scenes like the litter you can see there. Some other issues include governance, so coordinating actions on a scale as big as the catchment is quite difficult. A few years ago now, the state government got rid of catchment management authorities, which helped to manage the catchments, and that they're more aligned to local land services now, which encompasses agricultural lands and things like that. Yeah, so we kind of lost that increased focus on our catchment. And there's also really complex ownerships, responsibilities over many jurisdictions. So what is Georges Riverkeeper and who's involved? So Georges Riverkeeper is Australia's longest serving catchment group. It's formed way back in 1979 by a group of concerned residents who are fed up with the state of the river. So at that time, treated sewage was still being pumped into the river from the treatment centre at just outside of Liverpool. There was not much water-sensitive urban design throughout the catchment. There's loads of sand mining in the upper estuary around Chipping Norton. And there had recently been a massive oil spill in Botany Bay, which killed 4.5 hectares of mangroves. So, yeah, this community group was formed. Here's some old photos of them doing on-ground tasks. They got a few boats together, a few vehicles. And eventually, with ongoing support from councils, we got some permanent staff. So today, we have 3 staff: program manager, myself, I'm an environmental officer, and an admin and project support. And we're currently recruiting for a couple other roles. So who's involved in Georges Riverkeeper? We have 8 member councils, including Georges River Council. We have partners, including Sydney Water, Corrective Services and National Parks, and also community members. So Oatley Flora and Fauna are part of the community groups in the Georges Riverkeeper. So Melina and Kim are our current representatives. So yeah, there's a picture of all of us at a recent meeting. So we have 5 programs that we've developed in a strategic plan. So I'll just talk a little bit about each of those. The first one's the Catchment Actions Program, which I overlook. This program seeks to improve the condition of the river through on-ground actions. We focus on reducing litter, which is the most visible pollutant in the river, and work to preserve the biodiversity of the catchment. To remove litter in the catchment, we partner with Corrective Services. They provide offenders who do litter cleanups at 240 sites throughout the catchment. There's some consolidated litter from a creek line. And there's a map of the sites in the Oatley area. But yeah, as I was saying, there's 240 throughout the catchment. And last year we removed approximately 91 tonnes of litter. But I guess it's just an ongoing issue. You can only just keep cleaning it up. It'd be much better if we could prevent it entering the catchment in the first place. So we've started to work with our member councils to develop some litter prevention works. Last year, we created a strategy in partnership with our member councils, and we're currently working on a roadmap for implementation. Some of the things we're focusing on is building awareness and knowledge of litter prevention, involving partners like the councils, other land managers like national parks and also community groups, and taking a strategic approach across the catchment. In terms of biodiversity, a lot of the work that George's Riverkeeper has performed in the form of bush regeneration, focusing in endangered ecological communities and riparian areas along the rivers and creeks. So this year we put in for a grant application to do some riparian works within Miles Dunphy Reserve. This is one of 4 sites that we applied for money for, and we should be hearing back within the next month. Other biodiversity projects we work on include monitoring of the endangered shorebirds within the mouth of the Georges River and Botany Bay. So there's Debbie, who we go out with most months. She's the local expert, and it's been really great to absorb knowledge constantly from her. So we do that on a monthly basis, and the results are forwarded on to local land services who have some grant funding to improve habitat in the lower estuary. So the area that we survey is a Ramsar site of international importance, mainly because of the presence of these migratory shorebirds. So yeah, I think they're a really important asset for the Georges River and should be looked after. We're also working on installing a pole for the pair of ospreys that have been nesting in the Lugano area and jumping on people's cranes on either side of the river and trying out trees. So that should be occurring in the next couple of months, just going through the planning hoops and things at the moment. Another one of our programs is the River Health and Research Program. The primary aim of this is to investigate water quality all throughout the catchment. And we do an intensive sampling survey once every 2 years with multiple surveys in the sampling period. So within the Oatley area, there are three freshwater sites that we monitor. These include Dairy Creek, Miles Dunphy Reserve Creek, and Poulton Creek. So the water quality is measured through assessment of the riparian condition. We also take the physical properties of the water and do some macroinvertebrate sampling. So macroinvertebrates are little tiny water bugs, which can actually tell you a lot about the health of the waterway. So there's certain bugs which are really sensitive to pollution and other ones which are more tolerant. The Oatley Flora and Fauna crew generally help out with sampling in a few of the sites around here, and the really good condition sites in the upper catchment. Within the estuary, we sample in Limekiln Bay, Oatley Bay, 2 sites in Oatley Bay, and Gunga Bay. Here we just sample for chlorophyll, which I guess is a proxy for the amount of plant growth in the water, and that's affected by the amount of nutrients. And we also look at the turbidity. And with these results, we calculate a grade. So last time we did this, the water quality in the estuary was typically better than the creeks. This is due to tidal flushing. It's because we're quite close to the bay here. The tidal flushing is fairly complete, whereas in the upper estuary, there's not as much exchange. Beachwatch also do sampling on a more regular basis, but they do it for microbial contaminants, which typically come from sewage. So on the bottom right, we have the annual grades for Oatley Bay baths. So you can see it's been poor for the last couple of years, which indicates there's, quite often fecal contamination in this area. Under this program, we also help to respond to pollution incidents. However, we're not an authority, so we can't find anyone. But yeah, I think we're an important intermediary for other organisations like the EPA and councils. And we also work with university students to contribute to research and other plans. So I've done a few projects with students who are interested in salt marsh and mangrove coverage and restoration in the river. Another one of our programs is the education and capacity building program. So yeah, we think it's really important to show people about the value of the river. I feel like if people interact with it, they're likely to be more invested to look after it. We also believe it's really great to teach the next generation of how to look after the river. So we do a lot of work with schools and provide free education, material and events. The image there, there's a few students from Connells Point Public. We also do workshops and events with community groups and general community members, often partnering with councils. This month, we've been supporting Plastic Free July, and we actually have an author talk coming up next week. The book's titled Quitting Plastic. So if anyone's interested, you can head over to Sutherland Library's website, as they'll be hosting the talk, to register. But it's not just the community that we aim our education and capacity building program at. Georgia Riverkeeper is also a great platform for collaboration between councils. So we have regular webinar series to share ideas throughout the catchment. And we also advocate for the river. We write letters to ministers and respond to plans and other papers which affect the river. Another one of our programs is the stormwater and sewerage program. One aspect of this is the Get the Site Right campaign. So every year we partner with other catchment groups in the Sydney region and councils to have a blitz day, which looks to improve erosion and sediment controls on building sites. So the program's been running for a few years now, and slowly and surely there's a steady increase in the amount of compliance. And then, yeah, it's really important because you go past a building site after a big rain event and you can just see the amount of sediment which leaves these areas. Finishing up last year, we had a program which worked with councils to improve the use of gross pollutant traps. We provided a practical guide to their use, procurement and design. We did audits with some of the council to ensure their fleet of gross pollutant traps are working effectively, and other councils, we provided some funding to upgrade existing infrastructure and install new devices. So yeah, that's an image of a gross pollutant trap there. It works in kind of a vortex. So water will get flushed out the bottom and the floatable rubbish comes to the top, which can be fairly easily cleaned out with a truck. So yeah, they're really important to stop these pollutants going into the river. We're also working with Sydney Water to understand the wet and dry weather sewage overflows, which unfortunately still occur. So yeah, Sydney Water have been really good, and they have been presenting at each of our committee meetings, giving an update on where they're focusing their efforts. And it looks like some of them are going to be occurring in this section of the Sydney Water network. So hopefully we'll see a reduction in the amount of overflow events occurring. We're also helping to undertake a coastal management program in partnership with our member councils. So coastal management programs are a set of long-term strategies for coordinated management of the coastal zone. So that's pretty much up until Liverpool Weir. Above that, it's freshwater. So the plans have a focus on achieving the objectives of the Coastal Management Act. It's a pretty complicated process. I haven't been driving this, but recently we've completed a solid plan to move forward with the program, and we're developing an application for the next round of grant funding. So some of the things we'll be looking at include coastal inundation, and we'll be figuring out consistent policy positions across all the councils. I guess with sea level rise knocking on the door, it's really important to get these things sorted out. The program will also look at coastal hazards such as foreshore erosion and beach erosion. So this is a really big problem, not so much in the middle of the estuary around Oatley, but near the mouth of the river, there's been a lot of coastal erosion. The plan will also look at water quality improvement options and build on the body of work which has already been produced, including the Botany Bay Water Quality Improvement Plan. So there's a lot of those kind of top-down approaches to coastal management, and the program will also include bottom-up with a program of capital works that we can put in for grant funding. So these things could be improvements to sea walls, gross pollutant traps like we talked about, or assistance with managing erosion. And we'll also be reviewing the monitoring framework, which Georgia Riverkeeper and councils, monitor the health of the river and what's been done to improve its condition. Yeah, so we'll come up with some actions around that. So I guess how can you guys help? Oatley Flora and Fauna has done so much for the river, and we're very indebted to you guys, but I guess some of these might spark some ideas. So in terms of catchment actions, you guys already do cleanups. I came along to the Cleanup Australia Day event you guys hosted, which was a lot of fun. I'm sure a lot of you already joined bush care in the Georges River Council area, and that helps to protect local biodiversity. So River Health, I know you guys have a stream watch group that has been gathering data for some years now. So that's really important information, especially if you find something, some kind of pollutant. It's really important to report that as soon as possible. Any sewage overflow, fish kill, or removal of native vegetation. It's really important to get in touch with the appropriate authorities, and also lobby government and councils for policies that help the river. So I guess everyone can play a part in educating the community about the river and how to protect it. So you can help your friends, family, and neighbours to be river aware. If you see something that's not right, just give them a heads up. You can follow us on social media and spread the word that we're doing. You can join in on one of our community events. So most years on Clean Up Australia Day, we have a paddle against plastic and have canoes to hire out. It's a really fun day. Looking forward to it next year. In terms of stormwater, it's super important that only rain goes down the drain. So there's an image there of a creek that's been polluted with white paint that extended for hundreds of meters. And it's really hard to follow it up after it becomes piped. So yeah, it's important to dispose of all chemicals correctly, try to keep lawn clippings and soil out of the gutter, and again, keep lobbying for better stormwater management. So that's the end of my presentation, but I'm really excited to hear any questions, comments, and suggestions and stories about the river.
That's great. Thanks, Rob.
Yeah.
It's such a broad program of works that you have going in the Georges Riverkeeper. I know because I've been associated with it for quite a while, and it's really a lot of programs and a lot of work for just a few people in there. And I know it's difficult to keep up with all the work as people move in and move out.
Mm-hmm.
The councils change and the personnel of councils change, and so you've got a very complex job, and you seem to be doing a fantastic job with all that work that you've got to do.
Yes, still learning every day. It's it's a pretty steep learning curve going into a council and learning all the systems and then learning the whole catchment and all the different programs. So yeah, it keeps you on your toes. But yeah, it's an amazing job and an amazing organisation.
So is there any questions on in particular programs? Peter?
Just a quick one, Jim. Rob mentioned earlier they had military staff. When I joined the Riverkeeper in 2021 with 5 staff, and they lost one and they lost two. So they had 3 staff. And they kept delivering all the programs that they were running a couple of years ago. So they're under-resourced and understaffed, but I check them out, they do a great job.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. That's very true. Very true. Oh, yeah, yeah. The Georges Riverkeeper has changed personnel as they move from one hosting council to another, and they're doing such a fantastic job with the resources that you have at your disposal, and so that's the
we're doing our best.
Getting across.
Yeah, looking forward to having a few more staff on board. So yeah.
Mm. Yeah. Just on the specific programs, Leslie.
Oh.
Yeah. Yes.
I can just repeat it if you want.
Yeah, okay.
Leslie just asked what a dry weather sewage overflow event is. So I guess in the sewage system, there's a lot of different things that can go wrong. So there might be a blockage or a leak to pipe infrastructure, which causes either a large overflow or a slow continual overflow. And some of them can be quite catastrophic. So there's a pumping station out in Fairfield, which, yeah, the whole thing just essentially blew up, and a whole heap of raw sewage went into the creek. Yeah, but that's a pretty rare occurrence. There's a lot of checks and balances to try and prevent those things happening, and yes, City Water invest what seems like a lot of money. I don't know if it actually is, in trying to prevent these and fixing the ongoing issues.
Thanks.
Adrian?
Rob, great presentation. Because there's so much development further west and the Campbelltown area, have you got a comment about what impact that's going to have on our Georgia River?
Adrian just had a question about the effect of the ongoing development in the upper catchment around Campbelltown. I guess in the upper catchment, it's kind of lucky. A lot of the catchment area is in bushland area, and a lot of the areas of Campbelltown which drain into the Bunbury Current system are already urbanised. So a lot of those new developments are kind of in the Nepean catchment area. But yeah, around Liverpool, there's a lot of new developments happening which are in the Cabramatta Creek sub-catchment. So in terms of the effects, there's, I guess, the initial shock. There might be increased sedimentation and things like that, despite efforts to prevent them. And then, I guess, with more people in the catchment, more likely for litter and pollutants to come off the urbanised area. Developers these days are required to put stormwater treatment devices in all their new suburbs, but it's nowhere near as good as having a, I guess, natural catchment. Yeah, so urbanisation will be an ongoing issue, and I guess even the infill developments in areas like this have an impact. Just the sheer number of people and pollutants which come off cars and things like that, and also the strain on the sewage system. With more people coming in, it could lead to more wet and dry overflow events.
Is there a service into those new, estates including up there at the top there? There's no sewage systems in areas there. They all happen and so forth up that way.
Yeah, that'd all be connected. That'd all be connected to the sewage. Well, yeah, I'm sure they would before they put the houses in.
Upload
Do you mean that they have their own source systems or they're overloading our source systems?
No, they're just we'll make second step. And the two coal mines up there, or one? Is that affecting the catchment area?
Say again, sorry.
The coal mines.
I just had a question about the coal mines in the upper catchment. There are two coal mines, one in Appin and one in Helensburgh, and they've had some pretty detrimental effects to the catchment. So one of them's under the Warrenora Reservoir. I think Sydney's the only place in the world where they mine under water catchments. You're not allowed to walk in there, but so they do a lot of monitoring, and the mining companies try to fix the damage that has been caused through subsistence, but it's not always effective. So it does cause damage to the upper parts of the catchment, which are some of the most pristine. So Yeah, it's quite unfortunate.
Scott?
How far into Botany Bay has responsibility extend, or does it?
Just got asked how far into Botany Bay George's Riverkeeper's responsibilities extend. So I can go out in the bay in the boat as long as it's not too windy. Because it's a little flat bottomed, low sided. So yeah, myself and Deb have had a little bit scary moments when the winds picked up. But yeah, along the bay, Bayside Council and Sutherland Council are member councils of George's River Keeper. So yeah, we generally do works in the Botany Ponds or wetland area, and then out to Kernell.
Sonia?
You see like the tree getting taken out on the water, and I don't know, it seems very hard to get any action done on that. You report on your travels up and down the river as well, and do you have more success in getting action on that than most people? I'm just thinking there's a place just in Marine Drive on Overy, Marine Drive, about
61.
61 here. And there's just two houses next to each other that have completely taken out all trees. And one house now is a building structure all the way from the road to the water. What can be done? And is that something that you report and get to a conference? What should we do when we do that?
Just had a question about what can be done when trees are removed, potentially illegally, from foreshore areas and illegal buildings as well. So yeah, as I was saying before, Georgia Riverkeeper isn't an authority, so we don't have any powers under the P&O Act that council officers do. But yeah, definitely if we see a tree which looks like it's been dying, especially if it's in someone's view, we'll report it to the tree management officers at council. And also, in terms of sediment protection works, a few people think they can get away with it just because they're on, not installing them because they're on the river. But yeah, I've reported a fair few people to council compliance teams in terms of that. In terms of illegal developments, quite regularly I go out with a building compliance officer at Georges River Council who takes a picture of all the foreshore properties. So we can go back and see what tree was there or what building was there, and that provides a bit of evidence. But yeah, I feel like unfortunately it's pretty hard to ping someone with destroying vegetation. I'm not really sure how the laws can be improved, but yeah, something needs to be done. I think Dad's been waiting a while.
Yeah.
In regard to that and our observations on the importance of the tariff declining, is it within the gambit of the Riverkeeper to make any recommendations to partners like National Parks, Council and Wetland Services about the importance of that site and the need to maintain it through potentially restoration? Is that within your gambit?
Deb just asked if it's within our gambit to advocate for shorebird habitat in the mouth of the estuary, in particular Tara Spit Island.
Wow.
So Yeah, it definitely is. So one example is we took out the new member for Cook, Simon Kennedy, a couple of weeks ago, and showed him all the shorebird habitat. Spoke about the potential plight if that important area of habitat is lost. So yeah, I think we can continue advocacy for that area. And I was speaking to Liz, who's coordinating the program for Towra, and in this next lot of funding, they're doing a lot of feasibilities. They put some money aside for feasibility studies to, see what can be done to maintain that habitat.
That's great. Matt.
Rob, I was just wondering if you know anything about the original founders, the people, like, were they oyster farmers? Were they just concerned residents? Where they were from?
I haven't actually. It'd be a good thing to dig up. Last time we moved councils, I found a whole heap of old newsletters from the 90s and a fair while back. So yeah, it was good to read through some of those, but I'm not sure about the original founders of the Riverkeeper.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, sorry, you mentioned earlier on about the osprey nesting pole. Sorry, I didn't quite catch what you were saying about you still waiting for the permission to install that, or?
Yes. So we're still waiting on the engineering designs. Again, chasing up the construction people for the last couple of weeks. And then we're ready to submit to Crown Lands to have approval. It had to sit with council for a little while just because it's a pretty different kind of development. They didn't know if we needed a DA or if we could be exempt. Just because it's in the river, like if it's a jetty or something like that, it's pretty straightforward. But yeah, no one really knew what to do with us. So we were going to in Lugano, opposite the Gertrude Point flat.
But in the water?
In the water.
In the water.
Yeah.
Not on land.
Yeah. So George River Council provided funding for this project, and we're chipping in a little bit as well. But it's going to happen.
Yeah, that's a great project. Hey, Julian.
Just had a question about recent flooding in the river, whether it's a good thing or whether it's been detrimental. It's kind of hard to say. I think it will be beneficial to some things and not so beneficial to others. So flooding events really important for fish recruitment. Things like mulloway and Australian bass having flood events at particular times are really important. Some of the detrimental things are it obviously exacerbates erosion. So not so much down in the lower estuary where it's all sandstone lined valley, but up further around Liverpool there's some areas of really bad erosion. And we'll be working with fisheries over the next 6 months to do a erosion survey of the upper river. And there's potential grant funding for high priority projects to stop it getting worse. And I guess, it brings a lot of sediment down the river. So some areas in the freshwater section, there's sand dunes like this high. So that can smother any aquatic vegetation and things like that. But yeah, it hasn't been as bad as some other catchments which got burnt in the 2019 fires. I've been out to a few rivers that have just completely covered in sand when it used to be really nice river pebbles and weed beds. So I think we've been lucky in that respect with all these past floods.
Yeah. Vicky.
Yes. So just asked how far up Saltpan Creek we can go. How far up have I been? I usually take the kayak if I'm going too far up it, but
up to the bridge.
Yeah, we can go up to Henry Lawson
Drive.
Drive and a little bit further up from that. But yeah, it's quite shallow and muddy, and there's trolleys to run into. And
yeah. Questions here?
The question about in walking around the estuary, you see stormwater coming down that is, sort of chemically polluted. Who is the best person, the most rapid respondent to contact? Is it the EPA hotline? Civic stormwater toxins?
the EPA. It depends. Yeah. Yeah. Well, their hotline, that people manning it all the time. So yeah, even if it will be referred to council, probably best to go to the EPA. They got fairly significant resources. If it's stormwater, Sydney Water don't own all of the stormwater assets. That's mainly managed by councils. In some other areas of Sydney Water manage the stormwater assets, but yeah, mainly council in Georges River area.
Trevor, in the 1980s and 90s, there was a huge population of pelicans around the lower Sylvania, Current Point. They're all gone now. I haven't seen them. They just disappeared, and that's basically what's happening down in the Huron, down in South Australia. So, what's
just had a question. Had some observations in the 1990s, and there's a lot more pelicans back then compared to now. Yes.
Did you? Yeah, obviously. Oh, okay. But, yeah.
Like in the past 4 I feel like there's a fair few pelicans still, but I'm going up and down the river fairly often.
I was just talking about the lower game.
Yeah. Well,
used to be so many.
Myself and Debbie count water birds as in addition to shorebirds when we do the monitoring, and
the new Current Point, it's become a pelican roosting area.
Oh.
But the things that impact on pelicans are also plovers in the inland around little comments. So it'd be interesting to do a look at the information we've collected over the last 20 years and see how pelican numbers vary in regard to what is going on in big flood events in the inland. They breed in the inland. So sometimes the absence could relate. They've had 3 wet years in inland New South Wales, and so they're potentially a lot of person to inland.
Yeah,
and it's amazing how they know when it's raining or not. They just
even all birds like the shorebirds that mean Debbie monitor, they fly from as far away as Siberia. It's pretty amazing.
Okay. Scott, you had a...
I just had a question regarding when the catch management authority is what is still hard at more numbers.
That's Scott just asked when the catchment management authorities existed, what department they fell under. So I think they wrapped up in 2013. So a fair while. I was still in high school. But I'm sure there's been a lot of different iterations of the acronym of the department since
There
then.
were, I can attest to that, change from conservation and land management, from soil conservation to land and water conservation, to a whole lot of different names over every second year, midterm and after the elections. They changed the department's name and re-merged people. But that's where the catchment management authorities and the catchment management committees before that started under those sort of departments. But that's not the George's Riverkeeper, or it was formed under the Local Government Act. It's a collection of councils at the local government level, and it was called the Georges River Combined Councils Committee, and it was 9 councils in those days surrounding the Georges River, and so it then morphed into the Georges Riverkeeper much more recently. They found that the name George's Riverkeeper was easier to use and didn't get confused with George's River Council, as opposed to the body that oversees the whole of the Georges River. So there's been changes, as you expect, over 40 years. I didn't know about the original founders of the George's Riverkeeper were actually community people. I thought it was only started when that collection of councils came together. So that's something that I learned tonight about this, the organisation.
Yeah, well,
I imagine it was just community people going out there and saying, let's pick up all the litter and pull all the shopping trolleys out of the river and the rusty cars that used to be driven off the cliffs, and do it themselves. And then they finally got some support for getting a government-backed body to form an overall organisation.
If all those changes came, there'd be a lot of spare stationery and letterheads.
Yeah, until dot matrix printers came in, and you didn't have to print the letterhead separate from the actual letter. Yeah.
Yep, up the back.
Sonia.
Something that
not unique, but it's not completely widespread. So I think because we're in a metropolitan area, there's a lot of councils that can provide a bit of funding for an organisation like us. And so there's a river catchment group in the Cooks River. They're called the Cooks River Alliance. And there's also the Parramatta River Catchment Group. We all collaborate on different projects. Each catchment group's kind of got their own flavour and different projects that they look after. But we all meet quite regularly. We're all members of Greater Sydney Land Care, and we're on the committee for that organisation. It's good having some other organisations that are in similar boats to bump ideas off. That's a good question. I think it'd be really great to have more designated swimming spots. Spent a lot of time in my childhood down in Warranora. Used to do lifesaving down there. But yeah, as I was showing in that graph, there's still a little way to go in terms of having consistently good water quality. So Liverpool Council is currently investigating the water quality in the freshwater side of the river above the weir. So it's probably not looking to be suitable for primary contact, but they're looking to activate it for canoeing and kayaking. Recently I went to Penrith, and it's amazing how they've activated the foreshore of the Nepean River. So it'd be really cool to see something similar at Liverpool, and Campbelltown as well. They're looking to activate a spot known as Simo's Beach, which is really pretty if anyone's been up there.
In relation to that, is it mainly the sewage overflows that create the bad pollution? I mean, things like dog droppings on the streets, does that improve with the encouraging being about?
Deb just asked if it's mainly sewage overflows which impact the swimmability of the river. I definitely feel like there is a lot less dog poo than when I was a kid. My shoes are a lot cleaner these days. So the Australian and New Zealand standard guidelines, the main parameter for swimming is based off fecal chloroform. So that's the main contaminant of concern, but there's also sediment quality, turbidity and other things like that. So the Parramatta River catchment groups been undertaking a kind of 10-year program to increase swimmability of their catchment. So we might borrow a few of their learnings in recent years and try to increase swimmability.
So city water responsibility makes it really does.
Yeah, well, I guess it's their assets, and we pay them to make sure it goes to the sewage treatment plant. So yeah, for the most part, it's their responsibility, the upkeep of the sewage network and ensuring that minimal enters the river. But I don't know, there's a lot of people that live in Sydney and a lot of pipes, and I don't envy the job of maintaining and upkeep of that enormous asset. So yeah, and they are generally working to improve it. It's really good to see the updates that they provide at our committee meetings.
Last one, Susan.
Yep. So there's been a little bit of a groundswell in a number of estuaries. People have realised that back before colonisation, there was a lot of oyster reefs within the river, and a lot of those have died out. There's still some remnant ones in the mouth of the river and in Quiberay Bay. But yeah, a lot of them have been lost. So, Limekiln Bay, that used to be a big lime kiln to make concrete, and they took out all the oysters to produce that lime. So an organisation called the Nature Conservancy they've already created a couple of oyster reefs in the bay, and they're what's called a subtidal oyster reef, which is not in the intertidal zone, and they're a big oyster called a flat oyster, which is pretty much extinct. So yeah, it'd be good if so the oysters help to filter water, and it just helps to improve the ecology of the area. And the last update I heard, they're going to put another one just inside the Warrenora River. This one's going to be in the intertidal zone, so they'll place some rocks down and seed it with baby oysters, which are called spat, and potentially that'll turn into an oyster reef. There is some concerns though, because those kind of areas are also used by shorebirds for feeding. So yeah, it could potentially impact on that, but it's only a fairly small area for this trial. Some of it's through government grants, through fisheries, and maybe local land services. And that project was run by a charity called the Nature Conservancy, and they're kind of a global not-for-profit, and I think they have some what's the word, philanthropy, backing.
Big business. Okay, that's been fantastic, Rob, and a wonderful talk. We'll be sure to keep in touch and all keep a watch out on all the projects and events that George's Riverkeeper undertakes, and you'll be really surprised at how many there are, and a lot of them that we can participate in, like Clean Up Australia Day and those other things. So they do a lot of great work. So I'd like to ask Melina to come up and give you a vote of thanks for informing us all tonight.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Great talk. As you can see from the number of questions, which will probably keep going all night, that we are passionate about the river.
Of course.
And so are you. And that really came out in how you spoke about the river and the work that you're doing, and also what the whole group, the George's Riverkeeper, are doing. And I think it's such an excellent example of how a group of members, the staff for George's Riverkeeper, but also how you work with councillors like Peter Marnie, who's been treasurer twice now, I think, and also the council workers, the tech officers. I've been to quite a few meetings where tech officers are talking to councillors, they're talking to the community reps. There's this real good mix and vibe of how you guys work together. So it's fantastic to hear about. Quite a lot of people here have been involved in some of the things like Riverkeeper and clean-up days, but it's good to hear about the whole scope of things that you just explained. And do go onto their Facebook site and the website and have a look at the wonderful stuff they do with the schools and advocacy and community groups. So I'd like you all to thank Rob. Thank you.
And Rob has said he'll stay on and enjoy some of our supper and keep chatting and meeting people in the flora and fauna. So thanks, Rob. And
thanks everyone for coming tonight. It's great to talk to you all, and thanks for all the great questions. Such a passionate group, and you've done so much for the river over all the decades. So I'd have a chat to some of you tonight.
Okay, so we'll just do a little bit of general business.
Yeah.
And